This is the Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
We did put out an updated resource on our heap leach pads. We found that in the big leach pad, there's about 30 million ounces of silver, and in the smaller leach pad, there's another 15 million ounces of silver, very similar to the historic quantities of silver in those two leach pads. And we're doing metallurgical studies on those as well. The idea is to try and put out an economic study towards the end of the year.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry, Lutz, and silver definitely has been way stronger than gold recently from a relative strength standpoint. And we're very bullish on silver miners, and one we've been bullish on for quite some time, Silver One. And we're pleased to have Crowe, President and CEO of Silver One, with us now to go over the latest developments. Greg, welcome back to the show. And before we get started, you find all the information you need at silverone.com. Make sure you sign up for notifications. If you're looking for the stock on the OTC, it's SLVRF. And on the TSXV, it is SVE, and on the Frankfurt BRK1. And in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a shareholder and a happy one at that. So, Greg, welcome back. And hey, we got some drill results.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kerry. And it has been a while since we've spoken, so a good time to get caught up. And I'll let you lead the charge with respect to what do you want to talk about and when, because we have a lot on the go right now. Yeah,
I mean, really, effectively, the company's turned into three major projects, right? Candelaria, Phoenix, and Cherokee. Kind of started out as one, and I always like that because it gives you more opportunity. If one of them turns out to be a major home run, you're doing great. If two of them, then you're really off to the races. And if all three, God willing, turn out to be major producers, then you've hit a grand slam home run. So it's interesting how Silver One has evolved since I first got involved and became a shareholder, which was back in 2016.
Yeah, well, we have grown since 2016. I think when you first got involved, we were still doing work on our Mexican silver projects, which we acquired when we first formed the company in 2016, and we acquired those from First Mining Finance. Well, we've sold those properties now, and we've sold them to a new listed company that's just about to come to trade, and that's going to bring in about 1.25, eventually $2 million into our treasury, plus an additional 4.5 million shares in this newly listed company that I said is just about to come back to trade. So I think it's a good deal for our shareholders, and it takes, shall we say, the liabilities away from us with respect to maintaining those Mexican silver projects, and lets us focus on the U.S. projects, the three projects that you mentioned there.
Right. So let's talk about the drill results first and foremost, because that's the freshest news, and I'm sure that's the one that you've probably been out there looking at if you're watching Silver One. We had 1,032 grams per ton of silver, 1.51 grams gold, over 3.05 meters. I mean, that must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's always good when you see those high-grade zones. And that's in the same area where last year we put out those results just around the time of COVID, actually. And we were getting in diamond drill cores values up to 1,100 grams per ton silver with 1.3 grams per ton gold. So it's the same kind of area. It's down dip from the old historic open pits at Candelaria. And it's starting to to, shall we say, coalesce into a more defined body of higher grade mineralization that could be in the future amenable to an underground operation. So that's something that we want to take into account. We have had a drill program ongoing recently at Candelaria. We're doing reverse circulation drilling, and there's three goals that we're trying to achieve. The first one is, can we put some, shall we say, meat on the bones of this down dip high grade area, and eventually turn that into a resource for consideration for future extraction. The second thing that we're doing is we're actually looking at a long strike continuity of the lower grade open pit mineralization. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to get some metallurgical samples of this open pit mineralization. We want to think about combining some of that material with our heap leach pads. And just to go backtrack a little bit, we did put out an updated resource on our heap leach pads. We found that in the big leach pad, there's about 30 million ounces of silver, and in the smaller leach pad, there's another 15 million ounces of silver, very similar to the historic quantities of silver in those two leach pads. And we're doing metallurgical studies on those as well. The idea is to try and put out an economic study towards the end of the year that'll look at either the heap leach pads by themselves or combining some of this near surface extension to the open pit material with the heap leach pad material, thus potentially increasing grade, increasing recoveries, and overall economics. As I said, we're aiming to get an economic study out towards the end of the year. And the third thing we're looking at is kind of a wish and a dream, shall we say, but we found some interesting material on some of the old historic adits dumps just to the west of the two big pits, and that had a lot of copper in it. So is there a big buried copper zone down there? It'll probably be deep, but we are going to do a little bit of drill testing and see what we can come up with and see if there's anything there.
The surprises that come out of Candelaria, it's just never ending, because the two pits we were looking at, there's a large body of material or land in between, and you talked that the fact that it might be similar in composition to the grades you found in the pits. Now it's appearing that that is in fact the case. I mean, really, you knew the history of Candelaria when you took over Silver One, when Silver One took over the project, but really you had no idea of the scale of things.
Yeah, well, it's being mined off and on for over 150 years. I mean, it was discovered in 1864, a year before the end of the U.S. Civil War. One of the highest grade producers in the state of Nevada, up until it turned into an open pit operation in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then the only reason it shut down was because of the collapse in silver prices in 97. And we managed to get a good deal on the project. And we've been going full bore on the project for the last 3 years. Trying to look at can we bring it back into production. And we certainly haven't hit any major hurdles as yet. The only hurdle that we had originally was perhaps the price of silver was a bit low at $12 per ounce. But we're looking at $26, $27, $28 per ounce right now. And it's looking much more interesting. As I said, we're trying to move forward and get an economic study out towards the end of the year.
And that is exciting. And hey, we'd be negligent if we didn't mention the fact the infrastructure for Candelaria is incredible. You've got a road, you've got power towers going right up to the project. I mean, it really is some of the best infrastructure around.
Yeah, don't forget water. We've got water. If you don't have water in Nevada, you're not going to be mining much. So we do have water as well.
You have that well there. And hey, we visited there, and it was quite impressive then. And now knowing what we know about it, it's even more impressive. So on to the Phoenix Silver Project, which also is a fascinating project.
Yeah, it's turning out to be more and more interesting as we move along. We just acquired the rights to earn 100% a year ago, January, and we presented it for the first time at the big PDAC convention in Toronto last March, just prior to COVID, which was interesting. But at that conference, I was showing some nice samples. We even got one sitting right here, which if you can see that, that's all native silver. Everything you see in there is native silver. This little piece of rock, we assayed, and it came back an unbelievable 459,000 grams per ton silver, or 14,500 ounces per ton silver. You don't see values like this very much. Now, these are in silver vein fragments that we believe, because they are so angular, haven't traveled too far from the source, but the property is mainly covered by overburden. We've been doing geophysics, we've been doing geochemistry, we've outlined several targets, and we're finding more and more targets as we move on. And we've also put in an application for a drill permit. We want to drill just upslope from where these big nuggets were found, and one nugget came back weighing 417 pounds, and it was estimated to contain about 70% silver. So can we find the source of this rich mineralization? And to top it off, it's much more complicated, as these things tend to be. In the southern portion of the property, we're getting some interesting silver gold veins that also have very high copper, lead, zinc, and molybdenum values. And just across the valley from us is one of the biggest porphyry copper zones in the world, being mined by the likes of Freeport-McMoRan, Rio Tinto, BHP, and that's a much younger style of mineralization than our silver mineralization. So are we seeing an overprinting of this younger style of mineralization in the southern portion of our property? Our neighbors immediately adjacent to us on the west have a joint venture with Freeport-McMoRan to discover, or to explore, for porphyry copper mineralization. So we have two main targets that we're going to be going after. As I said, we've applied for a drill permit, probably take a couple of months to get it. And then once we get that, we'll go in and see if we can find the source of these really rich silver veins.
Oh, that's quite a story. I wonder if they're going to be approaching you, your neighbors, to do a joint venture as well soon.
Who knows? We will find out one step at a time. Right now, I'm more interested in the silver.
I totally understand that, and really just kind of amazing developments. What started out with one project, and so then we look at Cherokee, which is another one.
Yeah, we put out some news on Cherokee just to refresh your listeners' memories. We actually went out and we had seen a reference in an old mining journal to a project that they talked about mining in the 1800s in the thousands of grams per ton silver. And we kind of went out and looked at it, and we saw some very interesting veins there, good epithermal style veins, and epithermal systems host some of the richest precious metal ore bodies and mines in the world. We went and we looked, and we actually followed veins for over 12 kilometers or 9 miles along strike. The ground was open. So we staked it, and then we bought the patented claims that covered the old Cherokee mine, and plus we bought a water well. The only drilling that had ever been done on the property was in the very southeast corner, and that was done in the 1970s, 1980s for a big buried porphyry molybdenum target. They didn't find it, but we don't think they drilled deep enough. What's interesting is we've sampled a lot of those veins. We're getting surface values around the old Cherokee mine up to almost 1,000 grams per ton silver with 4.8% copper. We're seeing stuff to the south in an area called Hidden Treasure and Johnny. Not much copper, but it's more gold and silver rich. And we've got some samples there up to 1,800 grams per ton silver with 2 grams per ton gold. So we've outlined some very interesting areas for, shall we say, continued exploration, and we're just trying to set our priorities between Phoenix, Silver, Candelaria, and Cherokee, but we could go in and drill those patented claims later this year as well, where we're getting that very, very high grade surface values in silver and copper. So we're pretty active.
All right. So you've got a lot of balls in the air and you're only one person. So obviously you're only as good as your team. Tell us about the team and the pressure that they're under here, because you've got a lot more on your hands than you ever anticipated. When you got called out of retirement on your bike ride, you didn't know that it was going to turn into this, did you?
Oh, well, you never know what it's going to turn into, but you're quite correct. The team's extremely important. I mean, with COVID, I'm sitting here in Vancouver, so I'm not dealing with the day-to-day headaches of sitting on a drill, etc., which can be quite tiring and time-consuming. But I've got two very good people that are coordinating things for me down in the States. I've got Raul Diaz, who is our vice president of exploration. He came to us from First Mining Finance in the early days, and he's spearheading everything. He lives in Nashville, even though he is a joint Mexican-U.S. citizen. He lives in Nashville, but he gets out to the property in Candelaria and oversees things. I've got a fellow by the name of Tom Watkins, who's a brilliant geologist, and he's actually managing on site all of the drilling that's taking place at Candelaria. And you're right. We don't want to spread ourselves too thin, and that's why we're spacing out our drill programs. So we're not doing too many at the same time, because personnel are hard to come by right now. So good qualified personnel.
Yeah, not to mention the barriers to travel, because you're drawing on a worldwide pool of potential employees that can't get here.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. But we've been pretty fortunate. We've maintained our exploration programs ongoing at Candelaria for the last 3 months. We've done programs last fall and summer at Cherokee and Phoenix Silver. And once we get our drill permit for Phoenix Silver, we'll be going down there in a couple of months and starting a drill program there. The current drill program at Candelaria should be wrapping up sometime around mid-March, end of March at the latest.
All right. Hey, how the finances look? You still have money in the bank, right?
Yeah, what's interesting is we ended up doing a $9.5 million. I'm talking Canadian dollars here, but they're increasing in value with respect to the US dollar. So that's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, we did a $9.5 million financing last July. Of that, Eric Sprott, one of the big gurus in the mining investment community, he put in $5 million of the $9.5 million. Third time he had invested into Silver One, and he remains a very faithful shareholder. That essentially put enough money into our treasury that topped us up to about 14 million at the time. Of that, we've got between 12 and 13 million left in the treasury. Probably going to spend another $1.5 million on the drill program at Candelaria. But on top of that, we're getting a lot of warrants exercised. Right now, our share price has gone from a low of 15 cents during the COVID crisis beginning to, well, we've traded upwards of 90 cents, backed off a little bit today with silver prices coming off, but we're constantly trading in the 80 to 90 cent range. So getting a lot of those warrants exercised, which is keeping the treasury topped up. And then, of course, we sold off our Mexican assets, so that's going to add another couple of million to our treasury over the next few months.
All right. So you're well poised, and it sounds like you're handling the funds quite judiciously and wisely to make them go as far as they can. You know, they're going to stop calling it the spot price of silver pretty soon, and they're going to call it the Sprott price of silver.
Yes, indeed, it is. Yes, because silver is performing quite well. Mr. Sprott, when he started getting into silver about 1.5 to 2 years ago, very, very prescient. He was forward looking at what's going to happen, and we saw essentially the gold silver ratio during COVID It went to 126, and today it's sitting down at 65. So we've seen silver perform brilliantly with respect to gold. Both of them have gone up, but quite frankly, silver has performed much, much better.
Hey, and not to get political, because this is a family show, but the current administration, everything they're pursuing with respect to energy is only good for increased silver production, consumption, as well as copper and other metals, as we know. So.
Sure. And, one of the slides that I have in my presentation is a nice little photograph of an electric car parked under a garage, the roof, which is comprised totally of solar panels. And the caption on that slide says, "Driving towards the green future with silver." So there it is.
I just hope there's not a cliff at the end, but we'll leave that for the policy wonks in Washington and Ottawa to figure all that stuff out. We'll just stick to what we do.
That's right.
Anyways, you want to take a look, go over to silver1.com, sign up for notifications. Again, the tickers, we're looking on the OTC, SLVRF, on the TSX Venture, SVE, on the Frankfurt, for all you German listeners out there. I know there's a bunch of you out there because I get the reports. It's BRK1. Greg, sounds like great news. I can't wait to hear the results of the next drill program. It's really exciting, and we will talk to you again very soon. If you have any questions for Greg, just send me an email to kl@kerrylutz.com. I'll make sure he gets them. Thanks, Greg. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you, Kerry. Take care.
The Financial Survival Network.